Mr. Malapani confessed to his part in Miss Poulet's death. Despite initially and unwisely seeking to mislead the police about the manner of Miss Poulet's death, in the end, he provided information and evidence which assisted the police in apprehending Mr. Shoba and in successfully prosecuting him. In my judgment convicting Mr. Shoba, I pointed out that, despite attacks on Mr. Malapani's credibility, the core of that evidence was left substantially unchallenged at Mr. Shoba's trial. These are plainly circumstances that Mokgotlenje must have thought justified a more lenient sentence than Mr. Malapani could otherwise have expected. There is no comparable factor that would justify a departure from the prescribed statutory penalty in Mr. Shoba's case. Now I accept that, as Mr. Makabela submitted, I should not punish Mr. Shoba merely for pleading not guilty and maintaining his innocence. But that does not mean that Mr. Shoba is entitled to the leniency that was extended to Mr. Malapani. The default legal position in respect of both men is that they would both have faced life imprisonment unless such a sentence would be disproportionate. To say that Mr. Malapani's cooperation with the police rendered a life sentence in his case disproportionate is not the same as saying that Mr. Shoba is being punished for not cooperating with the police. I am also persuaded that Mr. Shoba's role as the prime mover in the planning and commissioning of the offence distinguishes his situation from that of Mr. Malapani. But for Mr. Shoba, Miss Poulet would not have been killed. But if Mr. Malapani had not accepted the contract on Miss Poulet's life, the facts of this case strongly suggest that Mr. Shoba would have carried on looking for a way to kill Miss Poulet with or without Mr. Malapani's help. Accordingly, the need for parity in sentencing does not apply in this case. While Mr. Shoba and Mr. Malapani killed Miss Poulet, their roles in perpetrating her murder and their conduct after it was carried out were quite different. Mr. Shoba was the driving force behind the scheme and has done nothing since Miss Poulet's murder to merit the kind of leniency that Mr. Malapani received. Mr. Makabela did not identify any other factor that would justify a departure from the statutory penalty. He drew my attention to the year or so that Mr. Shoba has spent in pre-trial incarceration, but accepted that this could not on its own justify a departure from that penalty. Mr. Shoba, can you stand up, please? For all these reasons, Mr. Shoba, I am enjoined by the statute to apply the ordinary sentence for an offence of this nature. You will spend the rest of your natural life in prison unless the parole authorities consider you fit for release in the fullness of time. Accordingly, on count 1 of the indictment, I sentence you to life imprisonment. You may sit down. Thank you. Is there anything further, Mr. Mohammed?
Nothing from the side, and that concludes our role.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. The court will adjourn.
All right.